Bata bata, bata bata, bata, box.
Turn it up. I told you now. Please.
You are worse than me.
Another year is ending. Sure, you didn't want me.
Hello. Welcome to the Batterbox Podcast. My name is Brother Mike. I'm your host for the Batterbox Podcast. Today, I wanted to talk about something very, very important, which I think I need to call your attention to. This is around the idea of people saying that the current situation in Nigeria would not have been better with any other presidential candidate, be it Peter Obi or Atiku Abubakar. So I saw this post on Twitter where there was a lot of people actually on that complaining that, well, Nigeria is bad, but Tinubu is still the best person that could fix Nigeria, that it just needs more time. And I am not particularly politically partisan in the sense that I'm not in favor of one candidate or another. Besides, I never even voted because I was not in the country during the election and I didn't have the opportunity to vote. So I'm not particularly politically inclined one way or the other, but I'm just trying to appeal to the reason and logic of people. So what you had was a lot of people coming out and saying, well, nobody can fix Nigeria because Jagaban is the best. And Jagaban is the one that could have actually made Nigeria better because nobody else could have. So some Obidients jumped on that tweet and were kind of like, well, if Peter Obi was in office, Nigeria would have been better. And or even if Atiku things will have probably been better. So I think what I want to do with this episode is to just talk about the current situation, just almost a year in Tinubu's presidency, and just how things have deteriorated, and also talk about how bad things have gotten. Then I'll try to make a case for, is Peter Obi better or could he have been better than Tinubu? Now again, that's all crying over spilled milk because Tinubu will be in office for the next 8 years. There's no doubt about that, no confusion about that. And by then Peter Obi will have been 8 years older. Now we all would have been 8 years older actually. So it's not like we're trying to fix what's already set in stone. Vis-a-vis, Tinubu will be in power for 8 years, but it's more of a reflection and to question the thinking of people. So without further ado, let's kind of get started. The first thing I have on my list is the fuel subsidy removal. One of the first things Tinubu did when he came into office was remove the fuel subsidy rather. Now, when you take away this fuel subsidy, because everybody in Nigeria uses fuel, the economy just gets this shock all across the board, no matter what your industry is or what your market is or your financial situation. When the fuel subsidy was removed, everyone felt the impact, from the lady selling tomato to the guy in his SUV and his driver buying petrol. Now, when the subsidy was removed, the first thing you see is a widespread, massive fuel shortage, scarcity. People just started hoarding. This lasted for months. So the execution of the fuel subsidy removal was done poorly, and some people say yes, the fuel subsidy should have been removed. Some said no. Now the reason why it was removed, I think, is because people were stealing and looting, and the best way the government could fix that was to remove the subsidy. And there are other ways which it could have been done without removing the subsidy, some might argue, and that is by trying to go after the perpetrators, those that are stealing, block all the holes. But Nigeria is not a country really about the poor man. It's more of a country for the big men. So it's easier to just cut the subsidy and let the poor suffer than have the men get caught and arrested for stealing our national resource. So fuel subsidy, that's a big one. One of the first things that it was removed. Now, remember when Jonathan was in office, these same people, APC, were complaining about, well, Jonathan is trying to remove the fuel subsidy when the strike was going then, because Jonathan has been threatening to remove it as well of the PDP before he left office. But what you see is APC complaining, but here there are politicians again, always lying, depending on the moment of how things favor them. Anyway, so that's one thing, that's a big one. Fuel subsidy removal was a big one. If you look at the situation now, a lot of Nigerians are trekking. People are just like walking because they don't want to pay for the price of transportation, because transportation has gotten very, very expensive. That aside, let's talk about the Naira devaluation. So the Naira has also been devalued at least once since Tinubu took office, which many people argue was done poorly, should not have happened. It was just kind of a bad move. And when you devalue the Naira, when you're not making any resource, you're not a producing country, it hurts you more. And so the time of this recording, what's going on is that the central bank has actually further devalued the Naira by trying to match the black market rate. So a dollar CBN rate now is almost 1,500 Naira, which is similar to what's going on in the black markets. Now, back to the first subsidy removal, where I talked about them punishing the little man, not the big man, because they don't know how to arrest or they don't want to catch the big man, because the big man is also one of them. Same thing applies with the Naira devaluation. So instead of going outside the BDC, instead of going after the BDC, the Bureau de Change, so instead of going after the BDC and instead of going after those who are really manipulating the system, they just said, you know what, screw it, we're not going to mess with those guys. They're the untouchables. Let's just try and match black market rate, which affects everything, because Nigeria, again, the only thing we produce is crude oil substantially, and we don't even make it inside. We send it outside for it to be refined and brought back in. Lame if you ask me, but that's just the way things are. So when the Naira got devalued and the central bank basically tried to match the black market, which it is currently doing, that's what I was recording, what you see is there's further scarcity. So it's like trying to solve a problem like killing a fire, but then you're pouring kerosene on it. Speaking of kerosene, another thing which the price has increased, or diesel price has increased significantly since Tinubu took office and since the forced subsidy removal. So by devaluing the Naira, it's harder to get money for those whose kids are schooling abroad. It's harder for people to afford anything because everything is imported and it's in dollars. So if you are importing things in dollars, it will impact the price of everything, like your common goods. Even something like cement. The price of cement has more than doubled since Tinubu took office, which, again, Nigeria has a lot of sand, but the ingredient I used to make the cement and mix it is imported. So cement takes a hit. Iron, construction materials, food, just everything has gone up. Now, keep in mind, when I started this episode, I was talking about how some people on Twitter were saying, well, Peter Obi couldn't have done better. But again, what I'm doing is going through the list of how bad a lot of things I've gotten. So then we'll end the podcast episode by talking about, is Tinubu really the best person, or could Peter Obi have done better? Again, no political partisanship here. It's just more of, let's just think about things. Let's step aside and think about it. Now, talking about insecurity, more people have been kidnapped in the first 2 months of 2024 under Tinubu's presidency than all of 2023. Something to keep in mind is that a lot of these things can be addressed by making police available. Recently, Tinubu met with a lot of the governors and they were talking about having a state police because they realized things are really, really gotten out of control. You might want to ask yourself, well, why are people kidnapping more? And the answer is right in the fact that people are kidnapping more because there's more hunger, there's no food, there's no jobs. Amnesty International came out that after 6 months in office, President Tinubu has failed to uphold human rights under his watch. Perpetrators of past violations are not brought to justice. There are no safeguards that are implemented to improve the respect for human rights. This is Amnesty International saying that Tinubu's administration must thoroughly and independently investigate the violation and bring a lot of people to justice. There are a lot of people have disappeared in the northeast, for example. The military is attempting to cover up mass killings of civilians. And if you look at some of these people, all these are all at amnesty.org. Insecurity is quite a big one that has plagued this Tinubu administration and is absolutely doing nothing about it. Price of goods, we talked about that. A bag of rice is about 70k. Tomatoes, onions, just name about every food product, and that has gone up significantly. Now, explain to me how the price of flying from Abuja to Lagos is 100,000 for a one-way trip. This used to be 20,000 just about 2 years ago, 25k. But because jet fuel has increased and just about everything has gone up, subsidies has been removed. To travel by air, Lagos to Abuja is 50 to 100,000, depending on when you buy the ticket. Again, it was 15, 20k just mere 2 years ago. So the question then becomes the question of leadership. Like, is this really a true leader? Is this someone who can lead the country? That comes into question. If you look at his first supplementary budget, he ordered a fleet of SUVs for himself, his wife, a presidential yacht, and then he wanted to renovate the Aso Rock Villa amid the cost of living crisis for some of the poorest people in the world. That's Nigerians. So again, the president that doesn't care, that is nonchalant, does whatever he wants to do and gets away with it because he has his cabals. That's who you have in office. Then there's the NNPC saga. There's also this thing about the law of governors in the Northeast that northern governors are cabals. The argument is that you need someone who's experienced to be able to ground those. You need someone who's experienced to be able to make sure that they are in check. And that was what allegedly Buhari was doing or able to do, because Buhari was a military ex-dictator and he can handle them, which he failed to do drastically. So when we now talk about the case for Peter Obi, like, could he have been able to better manage the situation? Could he have been a better president if some of you all have voted for him? And the answer to that is nobody knows. I think nobody knows the answer to that. Even I don't claim to know the answer to that. We don't know if he'll have been a good president. We don't know if he'll have been better. We don't know if he'll have managed things significantly more carefully than Tinubu has so far in this is first year of presidency. However, there are a few things we know. And one of the things we know is his character. He's a man of character, allegedly, based on what we saw, based on the campaign promises. Now, he may get there and do differently, but why wouldn't someone give a chance for that devil you don't know? So yeah, Peter Obi is a devil, yeah, he's not a good guy, but like we all say, the devil you know is better than the angel you don't. So, and this goes along the line that the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. If you say Tinubu is the devil, that we do know him, how much of him do we know? People are even claiming that he was not even born in Lagos, like questions about his certificate, question about his diploma, question about what he really actually did in Lagos, and how he's just been politicizing the Lagos state politics and ruling from afar. So if you look at someone like Tinubu, you want to learn about him, you need to look at Lagos state, look at what he's going on in Lagos state, and talk to people in Lagos state. They'll be sure to educate you quickly about how good or how bad it is. Now, a lot of guys were stealing ballot box during the election. They were looting and scaring people and intimidating voters. What I do know is that most of those guys today, they are also suffering the pain, and they're not enjoying from the current administration and from just price going on. So again, we talked about stomach infrastructure in an earlier podcast, where people just care about the stomach, and today they don't care about tomorrow. They don't care about a year later and how this guy govern, how would he rule a year later. So, like I said earlier, I'm not trying to say Peter Obi is better than Tinubu. Peter Obi will have done a better job. I'm just saying, would you rather take Peter Obi, someone that you at least know a bit of his character, you know is someone who came from the ground up, like most of us did? And if you ask me, I will say yes, I would, because I'll take Peter Obi over to me, because at least we know that Peter Obi is someone who not only has the ability to effect change like he did in Anambra, he can also affect change by making dialogue, having dialogue with people. So I would definitely take that chance, because if you look at what Lagos State has gone through under Tinubu's regime, it's been very partisanship. There's been poor infrastructural growth. There's been poor infrastructural improvement. There's just been a lot of things. If you want to understand who Tinubu is and you want to know how Tinubu rules, you need to look at Lagos State. What is going on in Lagos State, or what happened in Lagos State? You have Ambode, the guy before that wasn't willing to bow to Tinubu, and Ambode pretty much had to be removed effectively by Tinubu. Again, not in power, but he's a kingmaker. And then he put his boy there, Sanwo-Olu, who's now not even paying attention to the things he should be by developing areas of Lagos that he should have developed. So these are things that someone need to consider and to look at and say, well, based on what happened in Lagos State, could we give Nigeria to this guy to rule? So yes, I know some people will say, well, yes and no, in the sense that even Anambra, all the things that Peter Obi claimed to have done, most of those have been wiped away by his predecessors. But at least I think he did that when he was in office, and there are things that we can point to. With Tinubu, it's more of a bravado. Like, with Tinubu, there's an implied feeling of, oh yeah, he did this, he did that. Lagos is the center of excellence. But it is Lagos the center of excellence, really, where people are stressed. People are suffering and smiling. The poor road network is very, very bad. Electricity is not steady. Granted, Lagos State itself does not make power, but still, Lagos is not really like a good model to look at, which I was quite surprised during the campaign. The guys on the Tinubu team was, well, look at what he did to Lagos. I'm like, what did he do to Lagos? Like, what has he done to Lagos? Exactly. Is it by him like owning and collecting taxes from a lot of the Lagosians, even though he's no more in power, but putting his companies in place to rule and continue to make money from Lagosians? So where does the end stop? The end of greed? Or where does the end of making money stop? So where does the end stop? Where does greed end? The people have enough, they like get satisfied. And that's even things that the Holy Book had talked about, that it's you can't really satisfy a man. The need of a man are insatiable. My opinion is that yes, I definitely would have rather given Peter Obi a chance to learn. Like give him a chance to at least show us something different, a different blueprint for the country. Things need to be done carefully in a thoughtful manner. Maybe it's going to hurt before it gets better. Who knows? Maybe a year from now, Tinubu will have turned Nigeria around. Who knows? So I don't want to be overly critical of the guy, but I'm just saying from the situation on the ground right now, Nigeria, and from the way things are going around here, I don't know how long people can hold this suffering. I don't know how long people can endure the pain. And I don't know how long this would take, but maybe things will get better. Maybe they won't. But the question around Peter Obi won't have been able to do any better job is something that I quite find challenging, because nobody really knows. Nobody knows the answer to that. Even though you claim to know, you really don't know. Could he be a better president? I don't know. We just have to go by what they've done before. And if you look at what Peter Obi has done, if you really, really look at what happened in Anambra, compare that to what happened in Lagos State when Tinubu was in power, or in governorship, I'll definitely choose Anambra over what happened in Lagos. So that's kind of all I have today. Thank you guys for listening. If you're not yet subscribed to our channel on YouTube, please do that. And let's be more cautious in having this kind of engagement and conversations around people who don't know anything or who can't think for themselves, because I find that's very common on Twitter, especially in the Nigerian space. Please share this episode with someone if you think you're finding value from this. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you. Bye.
Bata bata, bata bata, bata, box.